Well, with all the breaking scandals and wars pending, do you remember the IRS scandal and Lois Lerner, who was the head of the division and the center of the scandal?
Members of this committee have accused me of providing false information when I responded to questions about the IRS processing of applications for tax exemption. I have not done anything wrong.
Well, recently released emails show that her office was very much involved. It was not something that was limited just to the Cincinnati local office, as she claimed. So she's activated her golden parachute, and looks like she won't be going to jail, as most of the members of the Obama administration aren't. Gigi Arnetta is going to be right back after the break with an interview with Mike Velarde, a former IRS criminal investigator, and they're going to go into this a lot farther. Stay tuned.
Tonight, Mike Velarde joins me. He is a former criminal investigator for the IRS. He's been here with us before, but we are going to talk about Lois Lerner and Obamacare. All right, Mike, thank you so much for being back on the InfoWars Nightly News. We just found out Lois Lerner resigned.
Wow. Well, you know what that means? That means that they had enough evidence on her, the prosecutor, to force her hand, because she was very adamant about not resigning after she took the fifth in front of Congress. But what will happen is TIGDA, which is the Treasury Inspector General's office, they had interviewed her probably about a year ago. And I think the reason that she took the fifth initially was because whatever she said to them in that interview was probably not 100% correct. As a matter of fact, it was probably, a lie, or she misrepresented something to them, and she couldn't go before Congress and lie to them, so she decided to take the fifth.
And what is TIGDA?
TIGDA is the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. They're like the internal police of the IRS.
Okay, so when you were a criminal investigator with the IRS, this is an area that you were familiar with? Yeah, well, TIGDA would investigate any IRS issues, including criminal matters that among employees. And when they were doing the initial investigation, of course, her name came up because she was the head of that tax exempt group that was looking at these Tea Party people, and so she was interviewed. And obviously, when she was interviewed, she must have covered up or said some things that were not true. And of course, when she came before Congress, she felt that what she had to do was take the fifth, because if it came out, they already had memos and documentation of what she said, and some of the evidence differed from what she said in that interview, so she would have lost her job. And now what basically happened was they probably came back to her with enough evidence and said, hey, listen, Lois, you have a choice here. You could either resign today or tomorrow you're going to be terminated. What would you want to do? So if she would not have resigned,
they would have fired her.
They would have fired her. What about prison time? Is there anything like that involved?
Well, what's going to happen, that's going to be up to the Justice Department if they want to pick up this case. Now, I would highly doubt the Obama administration is going to want to prosecute her.
Yeah, Eric Holder, I just don't see it happening.
No, yeah. I don't see it happening either. So she's probably going to get her full pension because she resigned instead of was fired. But if she did not resign, she would have been fired. That's basically the alternative you're given.
And when you were with the IRS, you guys were already carrying weapons to certain situations. Tell our viewers a little bit about what you went through as far as training. Yeah,
well, the special agents, the only special agents of the criminal division of the IRS are the only ones that carry weapons. There's about, I guess, 3,000 of them nationally. And they work doing, they do the money laundering cases on the drug cartels. They go after the organized crime people. They do the most egregious tax cases that have criminal sentences. Now, what is very unique about that is the IRS firearms training is probably the best among any of the law enforcement agencies in the country. Definitely better than most police departments, because the IRS has the time to train their agents better. In other words, if an IRS agent is off the streets for 4 days out of a year instead of 1 or 2, it's really not a big deal. And of course, the IRS doesn't want the publicity of having a special agent shoot somebody. That would be horrible publicity for the IRS. So as a result, they have to get additional training, judgment pistol shooting training on the fax machine. They have to qualify 4 times a year instead of once or twice, which most police departments will qualify once or twice a year. The IRS, it's 4 times. They have that extra, like I said, the judgment pistol shooting. They use the paintball guns, you know, to enact live situations. So you kind of get a little tested with somebody shooting back at you in those situations. So actually, the firearms training is very good at the IRS, better than anybody would expect.
The reason I brought that up was because I wanted to discuss with you the difference between gun training with the IRS and our police, and the fact that we are going to need probably some more people when we're handling Obamacare. I'm sure we're going to need a little bit of help. I understand that they're hiring some people to undertake that.
They want to hire 16,000 people, which would be a pretty massive expansion of the Internal Revenue Service. Now, the reason for that is the way Obamacare is going to work. If you cannot afford insurance, you're going to get taxed. So you're going to have on your W-2, there's going to be a new box that's going to say whether you have health insurance or not. If you don't, if the box isn't checked or if the information isn't filled out correctly, then the IRS is going to send you a letter. It's called a 30-day letter. And in the letter, they're going to say, according to our records, you do not have health insurance. If you do, please apply proof of your health insurance within the next 30 days. Otherwise, pay us, you know, the tax will start at $95, but within 2 years, it'll be up to about $695. So it's going to jump up quite a bit. You know how they start off subtly, and then of course they expand it. Just like with the income tax. When the income tax first came out, the highest tax rate was less than 6%. You know, now look what the tax rates are. So the same with Obamacare. So they want to have people in place to enforce that, because there's going to be millions of people that are going to have to pay that tax, and they're going to have to collect it.
Is there any surprises in Obamacare tax-wise that we should be ready for?
Yeah, there's actually quite a number of them. One thing that Obamacare does is it limits your medical itemized deductions on your medical. So actually, it's going to cause, you know, you have less medical deductions instead of more. You know, you would have thought that if they wanted to help people with their health care, they would have given you more deductions, not less. They did just the opposite. They also limited your medical savings account. So if you were going to have a big heart operation, last year you could have put 50, and you were making, let's say, $100,000 a year, you could have put $30,000 towards that operation, and it would have been tax-free. Well, under Obamacare, you're capped at $2,500. So it actually makes it more expensive. I mean, you're paying more out of your pocket and getting less tax deductions for what you spend because of Obamacare, which to me didn't make any sense, but that's what it is. What it is.
I wanted to see about debunking. I keep hearing things like, yes, they're going to be able to get into your bank accounts. Can they actually access your bank accounts through the Obamacare Act?
I mean, that remains to be seen. I mean, I don't really think they're going to get the full funding for it. I don't think it's going to. I mean, the legislation as is written. Mm-hmm. It's a total nightmare. It's $1.7 trillion in new taxes. It's pretty much like contracting with McDonald's to feed the hungry, except when you contract with them, you agree to pay McDonald's $30 a hamburger. You know, it's that expensive. So the cost benefit. I mean, they could have been more inexpensive solutions to healthcare than the one they chose. This one just gives the federal government a lot of control of the economy and created a big new bureaucracy, and it really doesn't do much to help the people as far as better health care goes.
What about situations where you need a heart, let's just go all the way, like a heart transplant, and you're over a certain age? Is there really an IRS agent that's going, I don't think so, Mr. Miller, you can't have that heart transplant? Or is that a different area than is it outside of the IRS? Is it a situation where there's another company working with the IRS to make those decisions?
Well, I mean, I think what's going to happen is Obamacare creates a bureaucracy. where you have layers of approval. They build a big bureaucracy within, and it's going to create a lot of red tape that's probably going to lead to worse healthcare instead of better healthcare. The paperwork is enormous. There's going to have to be people looking at all that paperwork that it's going to generate. It's going to generate a lot of, a lot of wasteful spending, to say the least. I don't honestly think Congress is going to authorize the salaries for 16,000 new IRS employees.
And right now, inside of the system itself, isn't it struggling as far as not having enough employees?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's what happened. Back in 2009, when Congress was controlled by the Democrats, President Obama asked them for an extra $640 million to expand the IRS. He got the money. He hired specifically revenue agents and revenue officers with that money, basically to assess more taxes and to collect more money. Now, since then, with these scandals and everything, Congress doesn't want to fund the IRS at that expanded level. Okay, but they can't fire the people that they hired. So what they're doing, as people leave, they're not replacing them. So now this is creating quite a nightmare, because if you have, let's say, 4 secretaries in a building and 3 leave, well, the 3 that left aren't being replaced. So now you have 1 secretary. And that's happened in certain offices. So as a result, people are not being replaced. So yeah, I have a client, and the RO that he has left, went to and took another job, and that case got reassigned. Well, it's not going to be a high priority of the person it got reassigned to, because they have their own caseload. They have a full caseload that they have to work, so it sits on the back burner. So as a result, they're not getting things done, because of the fact that people are leaving and they're not being replaced.
Well, it sounds like if you have a problem with Obamacare and you're having to deal with the IRS, it's going to be backlogged.
It's going to be backlogged. It's going to be a nightmare. This whole thing is a nightmare. It's just bad legislation. It's bad law. And whenever you're trying to enact bad law, there's going to be a lot of problems.
Well, Mike, if our viewers need tax help and they need it bad, where can they find you again?
www.MikeVelarde, V-I-L-A-R-D-I-E-A, MikeVelardeEA.com, or just call and leave a message at 888-873-8825. That's 888-873-8825, and I'll call you back.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for being back on the show, and I'm sure we'll do it again, because the IRS has plenty of scandals to talk about.
Hey, thank you, Gigi. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too. Well, now that Mike is not with the IRS anymore, he's doing battle for people against the IRS. You can always reach him if you have a little tax problem. And you can go to the InfoWars shop and check out Masters of Money Special. It explains how the global elite manipulate the monetary system to gain power and wealth. All this is available on the InfoWars store page. And don't forget to sign up for PrisonPlanet.tv today. You can give your username and password to up to 10 people. Help fight the tyranny. Get the word out. I'm Gigi Arnetta. Join us again tomorrow night for the InfoWars Nightly News at 7 p.m. Central.